My roommate had already accepted a job in another city. He gave me 3 weeks' notice, apologized about 6 times, and promised to send people my website. None of that changed the math. I could handle half the apartment. I could not handle all of it. For 2 days, I considered every bad option. I could sell one of my camera bodies. I could move back home and explain that my big creative career had produced one magazine cover and a collection of unpaid invoices. My cousin offered me his couch, but he had 2 children and a living room the size of a parking space. I even looked at warehouse listings, telling myself I could work nights and photograph during the day. Then Ryan called. "You're staying with us," he said. "No." "Good conversation. I'll pick you up Saturday." Ryan and I had been friends since high school. Back then, he was the loud kid who somehow knew everybody, and I was the quiet kid taking pictures at football games because holding a camera gave me a reason not to make small talk. He arrived Saturday morning in his father's SUV with 2 breakfast sandwiches and no useful moving supplies. "You didn't bring straps?" I asked. "I brought confidence." Confidence won't stop my lighting stand from breaking. It might. It did not. We packed my clothes, laptop, camera bodies, lenses, tripod, and the old frame magazine cover. Ryan placed the cover on top of everything like it belonged in a museum. His parents lived about 40 minutes outside the city in a clean suburban neighborhood where every lawn looked recently worn to behave. The house had pale brick, wide front windows, and a small garden beside the driveway. Colette opened the door before we reached it. I remembered her from high school as Mrs. Carter, the mother who brought extra food to every school event and always knew when Ryan was lying. But the woman standing in the doorway did not match the old picture in my head. Her honey blonde hair rested just above her shoulders. She wore a fitted blue knit top, dark jeans, and simple gold earrings. She looked mature, calm, and completely comfortable in her own space. Then she looked at me twice. "Denzel." "Yes, ma'am." She smiled. "You grew up." Ryan walked past her carrying one box. "I've also grown." "You grew louder." She hugged me, warm but brief, then stepped back and studied my face. "I still remember you hiding behind that camera at graduation." I wasn't hiding. Ryan laughed. He was absolutely hiding. Colette's eyes stayed on me for another second. "Well, you don't look like you're hiding now." I felt strangely aware of how close I had cut my hair that morning. The guest room was at the end of a long upstairs hallway. It had a full bed, a desk, a narrow closet, and a window facing the garden. It was more comfortable than any temporary place I had expected. Ryan dropped the key into my palm. 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever, he said. "Get some jobs, save money, find a place. Don't act weird about it." "I'm not acting weird. You've thanked me 11 times. Thank you for counting." That first evening, Colette made pasta. Ryan talked through most of dinner, explaining a computer systems project I did not understand. His father, Mark, joined through a phone call from an airport. Ryan placed the phone near his plate. "Dad, Denzel's here." "Hey, Denzel," Mark said. "Good to have you. Sorry I'm not around." Colette was setting water on the table. Her hand paused for half a second. Mark said something about a delayed flight, a regional meeting, and possibly being home the following weekend. Then someone called his name in the background. "I have to go. We'll talk later." The call ended. Ryan kept eating. Colette sat down and smiled like nothing had happened. By my 3rd morning in the house, I had created a routine. I woke early, made coffee, and edited at the kitchen table before Ryan left for class. I sent proposals to restaurants, small companies, and event planners. Most disappeared without a reply. One person offered me $50 to photograph a 4-hour birthday party and acted surprised when I declined. I cleaned every cup I used. I carried groceries. I kept my equipment lined against the guest room wall. I tried to leave no evidence that another adult had moved into the house. Colette noticed. "You know you're allowed to exist here," she said one morning. "I'm trying not to be in the way. You wash dishes while people are still using them. That sounds helpful." "It makes everyone nervous." She sat across from me with her coffee and looked at the images on my laptop. "May I?" I turned the screen toward her. Most people looked at my portfolio for 10 seconds and said the colors were nice. Colette went through it slowly. She asked about locations, lighting, and why I had chosen certain frames. Then she stopped at a street portrait of an older man sitting outside a closed barber shop. His coat was worn, but his posture was straight. He looked tired without looking defeated. Colette studied it for a long time. You photograph people like they matter before they know they matter, she said. I looked at her because I had never heard anyone describe my work that way. That's what I'm trying to do. I know. 2 days later, I found her in the home office surrounded by fabric samples and old design boards. She started stacking them as soon as she saw me. Sorry, I said. I was looking for the printer. It's fine. This is just old work. I picked up one board showing a hotel lobby in warm wood, deep green fabric, and brass lighting. You made this? A long time ago. It's good. She gave a small laugh, but it sounded automatic. Ryan was young. Mark traveled constantly. I kept thinking I would return to design when things settled down. Did they? Her eyes moved over the stacked boards. No. That Friday, Colette set 4 places at dinner because Mark had promised he would be home. At 7:15, his call came. Another city. Another meeting. Another change of schedule. Colette said she understood. Mark thanked her for understanding. After dinner, Ryan went upstairs to call Paige. Colette quietly removed the unused plate. I helped her with the dishes without mentioning the phone call. The next afternoon, she found me checking a loose leg on my tripod. Since you seem able to repair things, she said, could you look at a curtain rod upstairs? The room was not a bedroom. It was a small sitting room at the back of the house with a wide window facing the garden. Fabric books filled one shelf. Rolled plans leaned in a corner. Old project boards were stacked against the wall. This was supposed to be my studio, Colette said. I tightened the bracket while she held the curtain aside. What happened? The same thing that happened to everything else. It became something I would finish later. The rod clicked securely into place. When I stepped down, we were standing closer than I expected. Colette looked around the room. This house is always full, she said quietly. Ryan comes and goes. Mark is technically here even when he isn't. There are calls, schedules, errands. She ran one hand across the edge of an old design board. And somehow it still feels lonely. I should have said something polite. Something safe. Instead, I looked at her. She looked back, not like Ryan's mother and not like the woman who had welcomed me into the guest room. She looked like someone waiting to see whether I had really heard her. Then her eyes moved over my face, and her voice softened. You don't seem like someone who should be alone. Neither of us moved. Downstairs, the refrigerator motor started, and somewhere outside, a lawn mower passed the window. Ordinary sounds. Ordinary afternoon. But the space between us no longer felt ordinary. I broke eye contact first. Rod should hold now, I said. Colette nodded, but neither of us looked at the curtain. Thank you. I carried the small toolbox downstairs and told myself the moment had only felt personal because the room was quiet. She had been talking about her marriage, her work, and the house. I happened to be standing there. That explanation lasted until the next morning. I was making coffee when Colette entered the kitchen already dressed for a meeting. She wore dark trousers, a soft cream blouse, and ankle boots. She stopped when she saw me, like she had forgotten I lived there. Morning, I said. Morning. She reached for a mug, and I moved aside. There was plenty of room between us, but she brushed my arm anyway. Neither of us apologized. After that, small things started changing. Colette began asking when I would be home. I noticed which afternoons she worked in the upstairs room. She sometimes brought her laptop to the kitchen while I edited, even though the home office was quieter. We talked about clients who said they wanted something modern, but could not explain what modern meant. One woman asked me to make her living room look expensive, but not like she was trying, Colette said. That's every portrait client. She laughed. What do they ask for? Natural, but perfect. That sounds reasonable. It is not. Ryan walked in carrying 2 energy drinks. Why are you two complaining about customers without me? Because you don't have customers, I said. I have professors. Worse. He dropped into the chair beside me and looked at the price estimate open on my screen. You're charging too little again. I'm charging what people will pay. No, you're charging what nervous people offer. Ryan pulled the laptop toward himself. He increased the editing fee, added a travel charge, and sent the estimate before I could stop him. You cannot send messages from my business account. I just did. They're going to reject it. The client accepted 20 minutes later. Ryan leaned back with both hands behind his head. You're welcome. That weekend, he asked me to photograph him and Paige in the park. Paige wanted a few good pictures for their anniversary, and Ryan claimed every photo on his phone made his head look too large. That isn't the phone, Paige said. Colette helped Paige choose between two outfits while Ryan carried my light stand. For an hour, everything felt simple. Ryan made Paige laugh. She fixed his collar. I caught one frame where they forgot the camera was there. When I showed it to them, Ryan stared at the screen. That's us. That's you. He looked at me with real pride. Man, you're going to make it. Later, one of Ryan's classmates joked that photography was easy because phones did everything now. Ryan did not laugh. Then use your phone for graduation, he said. Don't call Denzel when every picture looks bad. I should have remembered that moment more often. A few days later, Ryan connected me with a student organization that needed someone to photograph a campus event. The pay was not huge, but it was fair. More importantly, they had 3 other events scheduled for the semester. You just needed somewhere to breathe, Ryan said as we loaded my equipment into the SUV. The sentence stayed with me because Colette had spoken about loneliness almost the same way. A house full of people. No room to breathe. I started noticing how often Mark's name appeared without Mark appearing. His packages arrived. His jacket remained on a hook near the laundry room. Colette added trips to the family calendar. Sometimes he called during dinner and talked about flight times, hotel changes, or a bill that needed attention. Colette listened, calm and organized. Then the call ended, and her face changed for 1 second before she covered it. One Wednesday afternoon, she came into the living room while I was cleaning a lens. I want to ask you something professional. The word professional made me sit straighter. Okay. She placed a folder on the coffee table. Inside were updated design samples, room sketches, and photographs of 2 small projects she had recently completed. I've been thinking about taking this seriously again, she said. Not one project for a friend every 6 months. An actual service. That's good. I need a website. Better photographs of the work. And a portrait. I looked up. Colette continued before I could answer. I don't want one of those stiff business pictures where I stand beside a chair and pretend to be comfortable. I wouldn't do that. I know. That was the problem. She asked what I normally charged. I tried to offer a lower price because I was staying in her house. Colette shook her head. You're working. I'm paying your normal rate. It mattered that she said it that way. Not as Ryan's mother helping his friend. Not as the owner of the house doing me a favor. She treated me like a professional. We scheduled the session for Friday, when Ryan had classes and Colette had no meetings. I spent too much time preparing. I charged every battery, cleaned every lens, and tested the lights twice. I told myself I was nervous because the job could lead to referrals. Colette came downstairs wearing a fitted deep green dress with simple earrings and low heels. Nothing about it was too much. That somehow made it harder. What? She asked. Nothing. That was not a nothing look. The color works well with the room. She smiled. Professional answer. We started in the upstairs studio. The daylight came through the repaired curtain and spread evenly across the wall. Colette stood beside her design boards with her shoulders pulled back and her hands folded. I took 3 frames. They were all wrong. You look like you're attending a parent meeting, I said. Her mouth opened. That bad? Not bad. Just guarded. I don't know what to do with my hands. Forget your hands. That is not useful advice. I lowered the camera. I don't need you to look respectable. I need you to look like yourself. Colette looked directly at me. What does that look like? Like you're not waiting for permission. The room went quiet. Then she released a breath, moved one hand to the edge of the desk, and let her shoulders relax. The next frame was better. We moved to the living room window, then the garden, then a clean wall near the home office. At first, she kept returning to the same careful smile. Each time, I waited. Don't pose yet, I said. I thought this was a portrait session. It is. You have taken 12 pictures while telling me not to pose. Those were the best 12. She laughed, and I pressed the shutter. That became the first image that felt honest. By the time we returned upstairs, Colette had stopped asking what to do. She turned toward the window, adjusted one sleeve, and looked into the lens with a calm confidence I had not seen at dinner or during Mark's calls. I showed her a few frames. She studied them silently. Then she stepped back into position. Take one picture where I don't look like someone's wife or someone's mother. I lowered the camera. Colette's expression did not change. She was not joking. All right, I said. I moved closer, changed the lens, and asked her to look directly at me. Not at the equipment. At me. Her face softened, but her eyes stayed steady. There was no careful smile. No family photo posture. No attempt to look younger or safer. I took the picture. Then another. In the last frame, she looked strong, feminine, thoughtful, and completely separate from every role I had known her in. I turned the screen toward her. Colette stared at the unedited image for so long that I thought she disliked it. Then she touched 2 fingers lightly to her mouth. I forgot she was still there, she said. She never left. Colette looked up at me. People just stopped looking, I added. Her eyes stayed on mine. This time, I did not look away. For a few seconds, the only sound in the room was the camera fan cooling down. Colette looked at the portrait again, then handed the camera back to me carefully. I need a minute, she said. I nodded and started packing the equipment. That was what I knew how to do when a moment became too personal. I put lens caps on. I folded the light stand. I checked the memory cards, even though I had already checked them twice. Colette left the room and came back a few minutes later carrying 2 mugs. Tea, she said. I remembered you already had too much coffee. We sat near the window where I had repaired the curtain rod. My camera bag rested between our chairs like it was there to keep the conversation professional. Colette looked down at her mug. Do people usually react like that? To their portraits? Yes. Sometimes. That means no. I smiled. Most people ask whether I can make their face look thinner. She laughed quietly, but the laughter faded fast. I didn't know I could still look like that. You look like that every day. No, I don't. You do. You just don't believe it every day? She watched me over the rim of her mug. Do you always see people this clearly? I should have said something simple. I should have told her it was part of the job. Instead, I said, only when they let me. Colette placed her mug on the small table. Her hand rested near mine. Then her fingers touched the side of my hand, lightly enough that I could have pretended it was accidental. I did not move. You know this is dangerous, she said. Yes. You're living in my house. I know. I'm married. I know that too. She pulled her hand back, but she did not stand. Do you want this to stop before it becomes something? The responsible answer was right there. I knew what Ryan had done for me. I knew the guest room key was in my pocket. I knew Mark's clothes were hanging 1 room down the hall. But I also knew the moment in the studio had not started that afternoon. It had been building through every kitchen conversation, every long look, and every time she had spoken to me like I was more than someone temporarily taking up space. I think it already became something, I said. Colette stayed still for 1 breath. Then she leaned toward me. I met her halfway. The kiss was slow, careful, and brief. There was no confusion about what it meant. That was the part that scared me. When we pulled apart, Colette looked toward the open doorway. I'm sorry, she said. I stood too quickly and almost knocked my camera bag over. No, I was here too. That doesn't make it better. I know. I carried the equipment downstairs and went straight to the guest room. Ryan came home an hour later talking about a class project and asking whether the session had gone well. Yeah, I said. We got good pictures. He grinned. Told you Mom would be a great client. I could barely look at him. For the next 4 days, Colette avoided being alone with me. She stopped bringing her laptop to the kitchen. The studio door stayed closed. If we were both near the coffee maker, she found something to do in another room. She spoke to me about groceries, schedules, and whether I needed extra towels. Nothing else. I did not follow her upstairs. I did not send messages. I told myself the distance was the right thing, even while I listened for her footsteps in the hallway. At night, I edited the portrait session. The professional images were strong. Her design boards looked clean and organized. The garden portraits felt warm and confident. But I kept returning to the frame where she had looked directly into the lens. I created a separate folder for a portrait series I had been thinking about, focused on people returning to parts of themselves they had ignored. I placed a copy of her image there, but I did not publish it. While I was working, I thought about something I always noticed during portrait sessions. Write in the comments. When someone takes your picture, do you prefer a natural candid photo or a carefully posed portrait? Colette approved the final images by email, even though she was only upstairs. 2 days later, one of her design contacts called me. She had seen the photographs and needed someone for a campaign featuring renovated homes and local designers. The budget was higher than anything I had earned from a single commercial job. I assumed Colette had asked the woman to hire me. When I finally caught her alone in the laundry room, I brought it up. You didn't have to make that call. Colette folded a towel without looking at me. I didn't make the decision. I sent her the website photos. She asked who took them. It still came through you. It came through your work. She placed the towel in the basket. Don't reduce your own talent just because this situation became uncomfortable. That was the first personal thing she had said to me since the kiss. Is that what we're calling it? Her hand stopped. We shouldn't talk here. We're alone. That is exactly why we shouldn't. She lifted the basket and left. Mark delayed his return again that weekend. Colette had prepared dinner before he called. Ryan answered and put the phone on speaker. Mark explained that another client meeting had been added and said he would make it up to everyone. Ryan barely reacted. Colette said, "Of course." After the call, she cleared the table before any of us had finished eating. Later that night, Ryan went to Paige's apartment to study. I stayed downstairs editing images from the campus event. Around 11, I heard movement in the hallway. Colette stood outside the guest room. She had changed into dark jeans and a gray cardigan. Her hair was pulled back loosely. She looked less composed than usual. She knocked, even though the door was open. I stayed away because I wanted the feeling to disappear, she said. I closed the laptop. Did it? No. She remained in the doorway. I stood, but I did not walk toward her. We need to talk before anything else happens. Colette nodded and entered, leaving the door partly open. I kept my voice low. There's Mark. I know. And Ryan. Her expression tightened. I know. I'm staying here because your son is helping me. I depend on this house right now. That makes everything worse. I haven't forgotten that. What happens when Mark comes home? I don't know. What happens if Ryan finds out? She looked down. I don't know that either. I took a breath. And what if this isn't about me? What if you just like being seen again? Colette looked hurt, but she did not turn away. That may be part of it, she said. I'm not going to lie to you. And maybe I like that someone like you looks at me this way. Someone like me? Confident. Established. Someone who understands creative work. She gave a tired smile. I'm not as established as you think. That doesn't change the risk. No. You can't promise nobody gets hurt. I can't. That doesn't make it harmless. Colette stepped closer. I know exactly what choice I'm making. I wanted to believe that made it simpler. It did not. I looked toward the hallway, then back at her. If we cross this line, we don't get to pretend it happened by accident. I won't pretend. She reached for my hand and waited. I could have stepped away. Instead, I closed my fingers around hers. Colette pushed the door nearly shut, but not all the way. That small gap stayed in my mind. A dark hallway outside. Ryan's room a few doors away. Mark's place in the house everywhere, even when he was gone. Colette looked at me one more time. You're sure? I asked. Yes. That night, we made a choice both of us understood and neither of us could defend as simple. Before midnight, Colette returned upstairs. I sat on the edge of the guest room bed listening to her footsteps disappear down the hallway. Then my phone lit up. It was a message from Ryan. Thanks again for helping Mom with the photos. She seems like herself lately. I stared at Ryan's message until the screen went dark. She seems like herself lately. That was exactly why the situation felt so confusing. Colette was working again. She had 2 design consultations scheduled and had started clearing old boxes from the upstairs studio. She laughed more. She challenged clients instead of agreeing with everything they said. Part of me wanted to believe something good had come from us. The other part knew Ryan had paid for it without knowing the price. Over the next few weeks, Colette and I built a secret routine inside the house. Coffee before Ryan woke. Short conversations in the laundry room. Messages sent while we sat on different floors. A hand against mine when we passed in the kitchen. Every ordinary room became a place where we had to listen for a door. Ryan started noticing the small things. He asked how I knew his mother had a meeting on Tuesday. He walked into the living room once and caught Colette watching me edit. Another time, she mentioned a joke I had told her when Ryan had not been home. Neither of us gave convincing explanations. The closest call came on a Saturday afternoon. Ryan had told us he was staying at Paige's apartment. Colette and I were in the upstairs studio going through website layouts when we heard the front door open. Forgot my charger, Ryan shouted. Colette stepped away from me so fast she hit the edge of the desk. I grabbed my laptop and moved into the hallway. Ryan was already coming up the stairs. I reached the guest room seconds before he turned the corner. He looked at the laptop in my hands. What are you doing up here? Working. In the hallway? I needed better signal. Ryan looked toward the closed studio door, then back at me. Right. He collected the charger and left, but the words stayed behind. Right. That evening, Colette found me on the porch. If I were free, would you choose me outside this house? She asked. I wanted to give her the answer she hoped for. I could not. I don't know yet. In this house, everything between us is mixed with secrecy, gratitude, and Ryan. She looked hurt. At least that's honest, she said. 2 days later, Mark called during dinner and announced that his travel schedule was ending. He would be home permanently within 2 weeks. He said it like he had solved a problem. Colette held the phone and stared at the extra place sitting across from her. That's good, she said. Her voice told me it was not. My way out arrived the next morning. The renovated home campaign offered me a 3-month contract. It was enough money for a deposit, rent, and something I had not felt in months, stability. Ryan celebrated harder than I did. He opened apartment listings and sent me 6 before lunch. You're finally getting your own place, he said. No offense, but I'm taking the guest room back for gaming. I laughed because he expected me to. 3 nights later, he asked to borrow my external drive for a class presentation. I handed it over without thinking. 10 minutes later, he appeared in the guest room doorway. My drive was in one hand. My laptop was in the other. Colette's portrait filled the screen. Why does my mom look at you like that? My chest tightened. They were for her design business. That's not what I asked. I could have lied. The folder contained nothing improper, just professional portraits. But Ryan was looking at the same detail I had built my career around. Expression. There was a connection, I said. His face changed. What kind of connection? We became too close. How close? I looked at the floor. That answered him. Ryan set the laptop down slowly. You stayed here because of me. I know. I carried your equipment. I found you work. I told you this was your home. I know. And while I was helping you, you were going behind my back with my mother? I'm sorry. Did you use me to stay near her? No. How am I supposed to believe that? I had no answer that could compete with what I had done. Ryan did not yell for long. That made it worse. His voice became quiet and flat. Move out as soon as you can. Colette spoke to him separately that night. I heard only pieces through the wall. She told him the choice was hers too. She told him I had not manipulated her. She admitted her marriage had problems long before I arrived, but she did not use those problems as an excuse. Ryan left the house and stayed with Paige. I signed the contract and rented a small studio apartment above a print shop. It had one main room, a narrow kitchen, and windows that faced a brick wall. It was mine. Before leaving, I placed the guest room key on the desk beside a printed photograph of Ryan and Paige in the park. I left a note thanking him for giving me somewhere to stand when my life was falling apart. I did not mention Colette. She met me once in the empty studio before I carried out the last box. There was no kiss. I can't be the place you hide from your marriage, I told her. And I can't ask you to lose your friend while I avoid making a decision. So this ends here. Colette nodded. She did not ask me to wait. For 6 months, we had no private contact. I completed the commercial contract, photographed 2 restaurant openings, and picked up several editorial assignments. My apartment slowly filled with prints, light stands, and furniture I bought myself. I sent Ryan one apology. I did not ask him to answer. Through a mutual client, I heard that Colette had confronted Mark. She told him his return could not erase years of distance. She accepted responsibility for her choices and asked for a formal separation. She rented an apartment, returned to design work, and began rebuilding her relationship with Ryan. Meanwhile, I prepared my first small exhibition. The show focused on people reclaiming parts of themselves they had set aside. Workers, artists, parents starting over, young people trying again after their first plan failed. Colette had already signed a release for the portrait months earlier. I placed it at the center of the gallery. The title was Someone Who Shouldn't Be Alone. On opening night, I was speaking with a local reporter when I saw Colette standing in front of it. She wore a simple dark blue dress. She looked at the photograph for a long time before turning toward me. You made me look braver than I was, she said. I photographed what was already there. She told me she and Mark were separated. She had her own apartment, steady design projects, and a studio she paid for herself. I'm not asking you to rescue me, she said. I came because I wanted to see what you built. My first question was about Ryan. He speaks to me, she said. We're working on it. He hasn't forgiven you. I understand. He may need a long time. I'm not going to make him responsible for our choices. Later that night, after Colette left, my phone lit up. Ryan had sent one message. I saw the article about the show. Congratulations. It was not forgiveness, but it was the first opening he had given me. Thank you. I'm still sorry, I replied. I asked for nothing else. Colette and I met for coffee the following week. In public. I'm not asking you to hide this time, she said. And I'm not moving into anyone's guest room. She laughed, and for once neither of us had to check who might hear. We moved slowly after that. Separate homes. Public dinners. Design events. Photography walks. Honest conversations that did not stop when a door opened. Several months later, I photographed Colette again. This time, we were in her own design studio. Her name was printed on the glass door. Her project boards covered the walls, and clear afternoon light came through a window she had chosen herself. I raised the camera. How do you want people to see you? Colette smiled. As myself. You taught me that part. No, I said. I just showed you the photograph. She stepped into the light without waiting for instructions. I took one frame. Colette walked over, looked at the screen, and nodded. That one.